I'm Dorsa Jabari in Tehran. Since the beginning of Israel's war on Gaza, which followed a surprise attack by Hamas on southern Israel on October the 7th, international speculation has grown about Iran's involvement in the group's military operation. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has denied reports that Iran has played any role, even as he acknowledged the offensive as a success. Now, 8 weeks into Israel's war, the human toll is staggering. Thousands of Palestinians killed in Gaza and more than 1.8 million forcibly displaced. Increased Israeli raids in the occupied West Bank have killed hundreds of Palestinians and seen thousands arrested. After a brief respite during a 7-day pause in hostilities negotiated by Qatar, Egypt, and the U.S., Israel's bombardment of Gaza has resumed. International calls for a permanent ceasefire are growing, as are accusations that Israel is failing to abide by the laws of war. Amid the devastation and turmoil, questions arise about what Iran might do next. Over the next half hour, we explore these issues with a former Iranian foreign minister, past ambassador to the United Nations, and current advisor to the Supreme Leader. Join us for an in-depth look at Iran's position during these rapidly evolving events as Kamal Kharazi talks to Al Jazeera. Kamal Kharazi, thank you for talking to Al Jazeera. The Qatari-mediated ceasefire lasted for 7 days between Hamas and Israel, and now the fighting is continuing yet again in Gaza. What is Iran's position on the current situation on the ground in Gaza?
Thank you very much. Basically, Iran has been supporting ceasefire from the beginning. And now that Israel has come back to fighting, I believe that is a strategic mistake, because not only they have to fight with Hamas and Palestinians in Gaza as well in West Bank, but also they have to fight politically with different countries who are supporting ceasefire, even Americans. And more than that, they had to fight with public opinion around the world. So it's a strategic mistake. We believe as soon as possible they have to come back to ceasefire and stop these brutalities and crimes.
The Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, on November 29th, explicitly shattered the notion that Iran wants the expulsion of Jews in a future state of Palestine. He said that some are lying when they claim that Iran says all Jews or Zionists should be thrown into the sea. These are things stated by some Arabs in the past. We never said this. We don't throw anyone into the sea. Does this mean that Iran will support a two-state solution if the Palestinian people agree to it?
Basically, we have our own views. Iran is neighbor to Israel. And therefore, I'm glad that the leader of the Islamic Republic has clarified this issue. In terms of two-state solution, nationally, we do not believe in that. Because, first of all, Israel itself is not supporting this plan. Second, it's not possible. It's not feasible at all. Because only 20% of the Palestinian land is in the hands of Palestinians right now. And even in that 20%, there are a lot of settlers who have been occupying the Palestinian land. So it's not, in fact, practical to talk about the two-state solution. We believe that the final solution would be establishing one state composed of Muslims, Christians, and Jews, decided by the original people who have been living in this land. And this, I believe, eventually would be the reasonable plan to come up with a solution. We have the case of South Africa, for example, that eventually they removed apartheid regime and they come back to democratic state. This has to be really thought about. I believe the one-state solution is getting more support these days around the world.
Do you think it's, even with a two-state solution based on the 1967 borders, if the Palestinian people accept this, and they have said, some within their own leadership, that they would you then support it?
This is all their own business, of course. We have our own position, but we are not going to dictate our position to others. But basically, we believe that that cannot be helpful. And this is not only the current government position. Even in 1947, before the establishment of Israel, that was the position of Iranians in the United Nations. At that time, the representative of Iran had a speech and said by two-state solution, never fighting would be ended, and there would be bloodshed all over these years. And that has been correct. Therefore, eventually there should be one state that Palestinian and others would live together democratically.
The Iranian foreign minister said that Iran supports Palestinian resistance groups politically, ideologically, and with humanitarian aid. Can you confirm that your government doesn't provide military or financial support to these groups?
No, we are ready to support them by all means.
Including supplying them with weapons?
Even if we would have access to that part of the world. But the road is ended. I mean, there's no way to reach them. It is only their capability and talent that they have been producing whatever they needed. Now they have missiles, they have other armaments that they need, and these have been all developed by themselves. They know how to get arms, how to develop arms. But we will be ready to support them by all means.
So you would be willing to send military assistance
if
and financial?
Possible. If it is possible, certainly there is no limitation. But it is not possible right now.
And do you think if that were the case, so you were able to do that, and you did that, do you think that would further complicate this conflict by you supplying weapons to one side?
Basically, you have to think that what is this conflict? You know, a group of people have come to the lands of Palestinians, have occupied that land. Now Palestinians are doing defense. This is their self-defense right. And it's like, for example, if you are leaving your house, somebody would come and kick you out. You have to defend yourself. So it's a question of self-defense. I believe Israelis do not have such a right because they are occupiers. They claim that they are doing whatever crimes they are committing because of self-defense. But it's not self-defense. They are occupiers. It is the right of self-defense on Palestinian side.
The United States has sent messages to you since the start of the war, stressing that they don't want a wider conflict with Iran in the Middle East. Do you believe it's possible to avoid one at this stage, given Israel is continuing its military path in Gaza?
Everyone has to try to prevent expansion of this war, because it's not in the interest of America, it's in the interest of regional states, it's not in the interest of Europeans. And therefore, we have been always against expansion of this war. But war has its own calculations. One mistake may push you to engagement. And that is something that has to be considered. Therefore, nobody can say that what will be in the future. We have to be ready to defend ourselves, as other countries in the region. And we are ready. We are ready to defend ourselves by full means.
Does that mean all your military capabilities and forces have been put on a certain level of alert since the start of the war in Gaza?
We have been always on alert. And Therefore, we have to be ready. And there's no choice. We have to be ready to defend ourselves.
What is the red line for Iran in terms of getting involved militarily with either the US or Israel? What would be a possible scenario or trigger that would draw Iran into this conflict militarily?
If they aggress against us, naturally we have no choice but to defend ourselves. That is why we have to be ready for everything. And we are ready for that.
What would constitute an act of aggression to Iran?
You know, for us, it's any aggression against our territories would be naturally has to be responded.
Hassan Nasrallah's much anticipated speeches were all about defending the limited engagement of his group. But could Hezbollah change its tactics and engage in a full-blown war if Hamas can't sustain its attacks in Gaza any longer?
Hezbollah has been doing very wisely. Of course, they were at the danger of Israeli attacks against Lebanon. You know, basically, Hezbollah's responsibility is to defend Lebanon, but also, you know, they can help other members of Axis of Resistance. By what Hezbollah has done so far at the border with Israel, about 3 parts of Israeli army have been engaged in the north. And there have been a lot of refugees from northern city in Israel to the south. And all of this has put a lot of pressure on Israeli government. And that has been a kind of support to Hamas by itself. But if Israelis would, increase their attacks on Lebanon, naturally that would be the responsibility of Hezbollah to defend fully against Israeli aggression.
Senior Israeli military officials have said that the situation on the Lebanon border is explosive, despite current lull in fighting and the resumption of the fighting now, and could escalate into a war or several days of heavy battles. What would be Iran's response should Hezbollah engage in a full-out war with Israel along its borders?
If they aggress Lebanon, naturally they will engage in full war. But right now there has been just a borderline exchange of fight. And I said that Hezbollah has been doing that wisely. And therefore it all depends on the future, that what would be, the level of this fighting.
Do you think their response has been sufficient? Because there's been some criticism, both within Lebanon and the Arab world, of Hezbollah, of not responding strongly enough to Israel alongside its borders so far. What is Iran's position? Are you in agreement with their tactics until now, or do you think they could be doing
basically
more?
I have to say that we do not order others, but others decide themselves based on their conditions and situation that they are living in. This has been the decision of Hezbollah so far, but I believe it has been quite wisely. And the analysis of the Israelis that the situation is very dangerous at the border, it is true. It is dangerous because they have the experience of 33 days war with Hezbollah, and they know that since then Hezbollah has become much more stronger. Therefore, certainly they have the right to be very anxious and concerned.
Moving on to Syria and the occupied Golan Heights, Israel has launched multiple airstrikes since October 7th with the aim of destroying targets belonging to Revolutionary Guards and shutting down main airports. So Israel has been very much on the offensive in Syria. Iran's Revolutionary Guard forces are active in Syria by the request of the Assad government. What's been your response?
Basically, this attack has been against Syrian territories, although in some cases maybe some damages to Iranian side. But we have not left that without response. There has been response in the past, there will be response in the future, and some of the members of the Axis of Resistance also have responded to that. And any aggression has to be responded.
I want to talk about this axis of resistance. When did it come into play? When did Iran feel that it should exist? How did it form?
It has been formed to, react to the intervention of foreigners, including Israelis, and liberation of Palestine, supporting Palestinians who are doing their best to liberate their land. And therefore, as a matter of responsibility, axis of resistance has been developed. And so far, they have been quite successful in terms of putting pressure on Israelis and Americans as well, who are supporting Israelis. What Yemenis did, for example, in recent days, that was a new phenomenon. They have now the capability to control the sea. And therefore, all of these are in support of axis of resistance. And somehow it can be considered as a kind of reply and reaction to the atrocities of Israelis in Syria and elsewhere.
Let's talk about the Houthis you just mentioned. They've claimed responsibility for a number of attacks against Israeli-owned ships and U.S. naval fleet in the Red Sea. With them claiming to control the Red Sea and your naval fleet in the Gulf, is there a wider strategy at play here to retaliate against U.S. naval forces in these waters?
Any of these members of axis of resistance, they decide by themselves, and they put energy and work toward their destination. And Yemenis these days are very powerful in terms of resisting against aggression, also in supporting other members of the axis of resistance. What they did in the sea and what they did in terms of missiles and drones was in support of Hamas, in fact. And therefore all of this had to be considered as the power of axis of resistance.
There are these, like you said, part of the groups that make up the axis of resistance. There must be some coordination between all these groups. They can't independently work on their own. Sure, they make the decisions independently, but there must be some coordination between all of them. Where does Iran play a part in this axis of resistance?
You know, it's a strategy. It has been developed by Iran, and they are supporting this strategy. This doesn't mean that on every spot there would be a coordination between Iran and the axis of resistance. But they are doing by themselves. They are manufacturing what they need in terms of armament. They are funded by themselves. But in the same time, whatever support Iran can do, if they request, naturally we don't hesitate.
Including military and financial support?
Yeah, if it's possible.
The Iranian Foreign Minister, Hossein Amir-Abdollahian, has said that the situation in the Middle East is a powder keg that could explode at any moment. Israel's stated aim is to get rid of Hamas completely. Can Iran accept a world without Hamas?
It is basically a wishful thinking by Israelis to eradicate Hamas. It's not possible to do that. And there has been many other cases around the world that underground movement cannot be eradicated. Hamas is an ideology. Hamas has the support of Palestinians. And so far during this war have shown that they have kept their capability. Their organization has not been eradicated, but they have been fighting with invaders to the extent that many Israeli soldiers have been killed, many armaments have been destroyed. And that shows that it's not easy. It is a wishful thinking to just remove Hamas and to eradicate this organization. It's not possible.
How long do you think then that can this continue? If the stated aim, you say, of Israel is impossible, they will continue this bombardment until there's nothing left in Gaza.
Yeah, but what they, arrived to, just hate around the world against Israel's atrocities, killing children, killing women, elderly. As you know, most of the people who have been killed are children and women. What kind of a strategy is this? This is out of anger. It is quite clear that they do not have a feasible war strategy. It's just motivated by their anger. This is not the way to fight. There should be some results out of this war. So far, it has been proven that there is no result. Bad killing, which has been inciting to public opinion around the world against Israel.
I want to end with Iran's nuclear program. The IAEA report and the latest accusations against Iran and non-compliance. Rafael Grossi, the head of UN Atomic Watchdog, in his latest report to the Board of Governors, said that Iran is not fulfilling its commitments and there is no progress ahead. Why is your relationship with the nuclear watchdog so strained if you have nothing to hide regarding your nuclear program?
The reason is that we signed JCPOA and all the members were committed were obliged to be committed to that. But unfortunately, Americans withdraw. When Americans withdraw, even Europeans followed the Americans' order. And therefore, there was no choice for us but to limit our commitments based on JCPOA text itself. Therefore, we decided to reduce our commitments. And but in reality, Iran has increased the level of enrichment, and that has been all right. In fact, Mr. Kharazi said that this level of enriched uranium that Iran possesses right now, it is only nuclear weapon states that have that. This is true.
So why do you need it if you don't want a nuclear weapon?
This is a reaction to non-commitment of others. And it's not illegal. That is our legal right to do that. But in the same time, we do not have a strategy to develop a weapon, although we can do it. Even they themselves said that it's only 2 weeks' time for Iran to just build a nuclear weapon. This is a capability. But
you could build a nuclear weapon in 2 weeks, one or multiple?
That is what the others say, that Iran is very close to building a nuclear weapon. It's only need of 2 weeks' time to build a nuclear weapon. But we do not have such a policy to do that because it is against the fatwa of leader of Islamic Republic. And we think that we don't need that because we are member of NPT and we have signed CTBT, and therefore there's no need to do that. But by itself, this capability has been deterrent against others. And therefore, this is the case. If they come back to JCPOA, naturally, we will come back and we will remain committed to that.
I don't think there's anyone left that believes there's a possibility of JCPOA being revived. There needs to be a new version of it. Is there any appetite within Iran's leadership to start rebuilding on what you had, a new version of
No, we insist on the current text. We are ready to return to the text that already has been signed provided the other side would be committed to that.
But your level of nuclear activity has dramatically increased since the JCPOA was signed. So there will have to be major adjustments made to the agreement to reflect.
No, if they come back to the agreement, we will reduce the level of enrichment. We will come back to the 3.67 enrichment.
And the excess amount you will get rid of, or get?
Yeah, whatever JCPOA dictates. We are ready to be committed to that fully.
So there's no new version, there's no updated version?
There's no need of
only
new
the original
version. It is there, it has been signed, only the others have to decide to come back to the current JCPOA.
Kamal Kharazi, advisor to Iran's supreme leader, member of the Expediency Council, thank you for talking to Al Jazeera.
Thank you.